If we take a penny to represent £100 million of debt, that would see you through about 7 hours worth of NHS spending. We can use that as a starting point for how big an issue this is. Now, back in 2005, at the end of that year, our national debt was around £490 billion. That's all the pennies in this jar. Since then, it's increased quite a lot, and that's because we've been borrowing more. So back in 2006, we borrowed £40 billion, and back in 2007, we borrowed another £40 billion. But then the financial crisis hit, and things got a bit trickier. 2008-9, borrowing shot up to 2 pint glasses worth, and £104 billion was borrowed, adding on to our national debt. And things got even worse the year after, as the government bailed out banks and supported the economy. 3 pint glasses worth, £155 billion worth of debt that year was added on. Now, in 2010, that came down a little bit. We'd had George Osborne's austerity budget, lots of cuts planned for the coming years. £140 billion almost was borrowed that year. And I think even a little bit more from that year added on then. Now, we're currently that's about £1 trillion worth of debt we're at by the start of 2011, and there was much more borrowing to come. As the cuts kicked in, the borrowing decreased a little bit this year, down to £116 billion, all piling on to the national debt that we've got to pay back at some point. In 2012-13, though, not part of the plan, borrowing actually increased a little bit, up to £123 billion that year. Things then started to come down quite a bit more as the economy improved. In 2013-14, £104 billion borrowed, still way more than before the financial crisis. And 2014-15, still £96 billion. George Osborne had hoped at one point that would be nothing. Now, last year, 2015-16, we still borrowed £76 billion. And if you take into account a few other costs, a few other loans that have gone on board over the last few years, it means that the current national debt is totalling £1.6 trillion. That's 16 with 11 zeros on the back of it. We've got to pay it back at some point. George Osborne's plan was to have an empty cup by 2020. But after Brexit, Philip Hammond and Theresa May think that can wait a little longer, so we're still going to be borrowing more money, and all that goes towards Philip Hammond's decision at the autumn statement this week.